G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by old man Hurston himself, Algared. How you doing, buddy?
I'm alive, which is always a good thing.
Another tired Sunday night for us, but that's okay. So we did the Terrapin one a couple of weeks ago, and when we did it, we were like, oh yeah, another low-hanging fruit. This won't do anything, and it got quite a few views for this kind of slower lull part of the year. And we had planned to do this anyway. And ironically, in a couple of days' time from when we're recording this on Sunday, as obviously said, and you guys tend to bring this out Monday your time. So that's 2 days from when we record it. And ironically, that's around about where the vote for this and the Terrapin are going off. The vote will probably be over by then, actually. But we still wanted to talk about this anyway. Because it is a very old ship, and those of you that have been around for a really long time, yeah, it's one of the very first ones, wasn't it, Algared? Straight after Kickstarter, they pretty much kicked it.
It was not one of the original 5, but certainly one of the very early ships, designed by, well, graphic design and concept by David Hobbins. He's the same guy who did the Mustang.
He ended up leaving to go work on Star Wars, didn't he? And so he made the Razor Crest for the Mandalorian that looks a lot like the Cutlass, and he made something for Ahsoka's ship that looks a lot like the Reliant, which he also made.
My understanding is that he was not actually employed. He was
he's a ship concept. So he studied ship design basically, and that's why he went to work on Star Wars. And he even said in one of the Next Great Starship that it was his dream to work on Star Wars and all that stuff, and he just missed out on it. And then when Disney brought it, he was gone like a flash.
But I think he was I don't think he was actually. I always thought he was more a freelance artist who was brought in to work on ships at various times in the earlier period. But
he was a judge
he worked on a lot of other areas as well before then.
He was a judge though on the Next Great Starship. That's how I got to know him. So yeah. Right.
So
back to Gladiator.
And the other thing with the Gladiator, I think we should try to get out before the vote, just because that way we're being even-handed with these two.
We'll see.
Two venerable ships.
We'll see. We'll see. Because I think it. We'll talk about it after the show, but I literally think it is the day before we normally do it. But we'll see. We'll have to talk about it after this one. But I'm going to get in game, and we're going to have a look around it because unlike a lot of the other ships, I hit the wrong button. Unlike a lot of the other ships, there are not a lot of art for this ship, and a lot of the art is very, very old. Because, well, it's another reason why it's one of the reasons we're talking about this ship is it needs skins, and it needs kind of a not really. How do I word this? It's not really an update. It just needs the gold pass, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, TLC gold pass. But when you see it, you can see it is an old looking ship. It looks even older than the F7Cs. So
well, the Mark 1s, yeah.
Yeah. So they're much older than those, but it's the same vintage in terms of game lore.
It's got some weird bounciness going on there. But yeah, I think that's one of its charms, though. It's got these older flaps and all these type of things. Also, we know it's a Jace Aerospace design, so do you want to tell people a little bit about that, Algared? The difference between modern Anvil and older Anvil.
Well, certainly from what I can gather, an older Anvil ship. From what I couldn't confirm whether it was a Chase Aerospace design ship like the Hornet, like the Hurricane. So I was looking for that. But it certainly is an older design ship. It was flown by Velosquad. It was also the 214 Squadron.
Well, can I tell you a theory I have? You know the ones that have these seats, and I wasn't intending to actually get in, but maybe I can just open it. Is these ones that have these seats that come down? I believe these are the older Jace Aerospace ones, because the newer ones, like if you think about the F8 as an example, they don't do that. It's only these older ones. So the Hurricane does this, the Gladiator does this. and I'm trying to think of the other one, and there's one other one that I'm just forgetting, or have I mixed them up? But yeah. So I think that the dropping seat thing is a Jace Aerospace holdover. Yeah,
It is possible. Like I said, I can't recall whether it is or isn't. It's the same vintage as the. It is certainly the same vintage as the Hornet, and it was their basically light bomber.
Yeah. Well, the law that I read many years ago, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, was it was designed to bridge the gap between fighters and bombers.
Yeah. Well, it uses it as part of its. If you're looking for a real world example, this is the Dauntless, and the torpedo bomber from World War II. So it's that vintage style ship. And if you look at the Dauntless, I think the Dauntless was, when it was first built, like a really modern ship. But by the time the war came out, it was outdated and old and clunky and slow. And
yeah, it definitely has this landing gear is still some of the coolest landing gear in the game. I think the only other Anvil landing gear that I think even comes close to this one is the one on the Carrack, as in terms of complexity is what I'm talking about here, like the way it all folds away. I'll get in and show you that while you're talking. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. So so this is a ship that certainly has a lot of lore behind it. Versatile fighter bomber, quickly become a favourite of combat fighters according to the brochure and other stuff. And you get you've got the combat pilot reviews and saying how wonderful it is. One of the things that this ship was always said to do as well, not only was it a torpedo bomber, but it was also a ground attack. So it was able to do ground attack missions and drop guided glide bombs. So it could level bomb, it could dive bomb, it could torpedo bomb. It was just your all-round two-man fighter, or two-man fighter bomber.
Tangent.
And you can see...
Can I ask you a tangent question? I'm actually trying to think of another ship that has downswept wings like that. I don't think there is there, or am I mistaken? I don't think there is. I think that is unique to this ship.
Yeah, I think you could be right. I can't say. I honestly go around looking at the ships.
I know it's a weird question to ask, but I was just thinking that is a unique thing of this ship. I'm pretty sure.
But it also, you can see that's where the landing gear is actually fitted. So
yeah, all integrated.
It's certainly a beautiful ship in terms of the way the landing gear works and the complexity of it and how it goes into those downswept wings.
Yeah. It doesn't actually really have any internals either. So it is the closest ship to this that I would say. Now you correct me if you think I'm wrong here, Algared. In close of use and feel is probably the Super Hornet, right? But what you're giving up, you give up a bit of the power of the Super Hornet, and you essentially get torpedoes. That's essentially, you're kind of like swapping your armaments. Is the closest analogy I can give, unless you can think of another way to put that.
No, I think that would probably be a fair cop. If anything, I'd say the Super Hornet with the dual cabin kind of takes a leaf from the Gladiator.
Agreed.
Because it was a two-man ship. You basically had your bombardier and your pilot. But I think that's really become bombardier is really your tail gunner and your pilot with everything else. I like the fact that with the newer, as we see it in game now, the turrets, the top turret looks oversized. But that's because it's now got size 3s instead of the piddly size 2s it once used to have, and I think that in itself is an upgrade that gives the ship a little bit more legroom.
In a lot of ways, I think this ship, now you can correct me if you think I'm wrong here, I always thought this was probably the most X-Wing looking thing until the Scorpius came along. And now if you kind of said, okay, it's no longer the X-Wing, it would be like the A1s, I think they were called, or E1s in Star Wars, where they don't have the dividing wings. They're just like that, because it's still got that bubble canopy and stuff like that. So
Yeah, but the bubble can actually be R2D26.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I suppose I could see it as being in that sense. I just love, I've got to admit, I just love the Gladiator for the lines and the way it looks. It looks old and clunky.
Now this nose is meant to come out, Algared. This is one of the first ships they talked about modularity, didn't they? And this is meant to come out, and you put in your aviation blades and stuff like that into the nose and stuff. So that obviously is something we'll probably get in the gold pass or whatever whenever they eventually get around to doing this one.
Well, one of the things I did notice for the Gladiator was that they were talking in one of the items I was looking at. They were talking about the components. And you know what? Considering how old this ship is, one of the components that was listed in the ship was the battery. So even back then, we were talking about batteries being there to be able to be used by our ships as well. So I just thought that was another little side. One of the things that I also love about this ship is it was, for a while, Star Citizen's poster child. They didn't use the Hornet when they were doing, I think, an article in PC Gamer. They used the Gladiator, and they used that to show the internals of the ship. And that was saying, hey, we're not just building a normal game where you become the ship. We're doing a game where the components and the internals really matter. And so they were showing their design of their ship with all the bits and pieces of it. And I think that's still true. So the Gladiator kind of has that feel, and yeah, I'm waxing.
Yeah, there is still something like a rickety old biplane about this thing, and anyone that's flown it will know what I'm talking about. It definitely needs some love, which is the whole reason we're actually looking at today anyway, so that's a part of it. But the reason it needs the love is it is actually still a good ship, and it does have a place in the game. I think that's the really key thing. It is that middle ground, like... even though it was one of the earliest ships, you can kind of see now more ships have come out afterwards. If you are into, like, if you had a Super Hornet and I'm trying to think of how I would word this, right? If you wanted an Eclipse and you wanted a Super Hornet, but you could only afford one, this would be the stopgap type of thing, you know?
Yeah, and you can also see, like, I think you can see where the Hurricane has taken a lot of its lines from, in terms of the cockpit and the dual cab. You put a quad turret on there on the back, and you basically got the Hurricane.
Yeah, agreed.
And so you've got this ship that's heavily armored for what it is, because it's slow, but it's heavily armored. I was just looking at the at page 5 of the brochure.
Yep, let me flip
it
it
says,
over for you.
And it picks up that point that you said, that it was developed to bridge the gap between fighters and bombers. In fact, that's the first line of that page. But then you look at the versatility and bits and pieces that this ship was envisaged to do within the lore. So it's space to ground bombing, support for long range squadron missions, modified command and control, capital torpedo strikes, stealth operations, supply drops through enemy controlled territory, and in lore. That's one of the things the Lost Squad, the Squadron 88, were doing when they were holding back the Van Gogh, taking people out and dropping supplies and the rest of it.
I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, and I probably am remembering this wrong. You tell me if I am. I do remember something about you could possibly put cargo where the torpedoes were.
Yeah.
And there was an option that they talked about for actually physically dropping bombs, more in line with the A1 and A2. But we still haven't heard anything all these years later.
Well, if you scroll up a little bit to where they've got the list of items on that one, you can see on the second column, underneath stealth operations, is supply drops through enemy controlled territory.
Yep.
As well as blockade running.
Okay. So that's cargo.
So you've got your cargo, you've got your blockade running, you've got your torpedo strikes, stealth missions, and other things. So
I like this one. Aggressive environmental recalibration.
So you've got a whole pile of things that this ship was supposed to do, and then you look down at the
What
the
page?
components on the ship,
The one at 10.
which was
Page
page
10?
10, I
Yeah,
think.
there we go. Yeah,
Yep.
that one. Yep.
Then you've got the a list of all components, and underneath hard points, right at the bottom, a bomb bay and second pair of missiles are optional extras. So there's the actual physical stuff that says, hey, this ship was envisaged to have a bomb bay. We've never seen it. We've never had it in game, but there's the idea that it was there. Will we get it? I really hope we do. I really hope it does get that modularity for the bomb bay and or cargo bay.
And knowing its early development too, this is more likely featured in Squadron 42.
It was built for Squadron 42.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things it was built for. If you look at the one of the earlier discussions, I think in the work in progress, the very first page of that, which was in Subscriber Flare, I do believe. But
they've actually got, I was telling you about the things and stuff. It actually says that. Look, it's talking about tail navigation, EMC aerials, which is this thing out here. 3 was variable area afterburner, so that's the afterburner. 4 is main port thruster. But I swear that this pulled out. I'm just trying to find that thing. Do you remember what it was called, Algared? You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Like it slides out, and you can
come out and you'd have your component put in there.
I remember a picture of it, but be damned if I'd be able to find it if I didn't go search for hours and upon hours and hours. But yeah. All right, you're saying, sorry, before I rudely interrupted you.
Yeah, so I was just trying to find the reference where they talk about the ship being built for Squadron 42.
Oh, okay.
But then also in that thing, that was where they had the components and the battery pack in that work in progress as well. So that was from a Jump Point magazine.
It is 2 radar, avionics, and housing. So, and it's right up the front. So yeah, I was remembering correctly.
Yeah, I know it's I'm waffling and I'm repeating myself a dozen times, but
not really.
This is a ship that's got so many things that it can do, but it's still stuck in its original concept with just size 5 missiles. And I think the Eclipse really almost was a death knell to it, just because it had bigger missiles and more missiles.
Yep. I think that's the nature of...
And it was a single-person ship.
I think that's the nature of how they've done a lot of the ships, though. Like, as more things have come along, they've got trod on. And I think this is a very unique middle ground, as I said earlier, because it's obviously not as strong as an Eclipse, because the bombs are weaker. It's also got a same torpedo complement as the Harbinger, but the other thing is it's both cheaper than the Harbinger, and it also is more of a carry, like it fits in a smaller space. So it's almost what the as the Eclipse is to the Retaliator, this is to the Harbinger, though they both have the same armament, if you get what I mean. Like, as in, so there is an advantage to this. There still is a place for this. It's just more niche than you would want it to be. But also, it can still kind of fight a bit, which, look at the Eclipse. That struggles in that department.
Certainly with the torpedo, the regular missiles it's got, plus the size 3 guns, plus the gunner size 3 guns.
Yep.
It's got a fair amount of firepower, but you really do need that second gunner to be able to leverage the most out of it.
And there's a place for it because, like, again, those bigger Eclipse torpedoes are tailored at the bigger ships, where these being slightly smaller, you could probably see this going for, medium to large, where that's, it's not capital for the Retaliator. You get what I'm trying to say, right? It's tailored more to a smaller range of ships, where they're physically tailored at the larger ones.
Well, if you look at what the Gladiator is, it's there you go in the Star Citizen wiki for the Gladiator in the trivia. Inspired by the carrier-based dive bombers and torpedo bombers of World War II, such as the Avenger and the Dauntless, and was initially created for Squadron 42.
All right, I found the trivia. I'm just flicking it over. Yep.
So it's just nice to see those little bits of information. And if you want to find out anything else about the Gladiator, there's a whole list of references that you can go to.
Now, all that said, for me, I still wouldn't buy a fighter. But again, when you start to compare fighters between other fighters, this does have that unique ability that we've kind of mentioned, where it is a hybrid. I think there's not many ships that I can say that fall into a hybrid.
Yeah.
And when I mean specifically by that, we get a ship that is like half combat, half something else, but you don't get one that is two sides of the same coin. And what I mean by that is it's got two sides of combat. I don't know. I just find that a bit different.
Yeah. Well, if this ship gets if CIG do give this ship its cargo pod and give it a bomb bay, it really does make this a very, very versatile ship. In lore, it's a very, very versatile ship, and it has those. We just don't have them in game, and it's a bit like, in a sense, it's a bit like when you look at the things that the lore says it's got and the things we've got in game. It's a bit like voting for, if you're looking for the votes, like voting for the 600i because the rework's coming, or voting for another ship that hasn't got all the components yet. Or voting for a Terrapin, even though it doesn't have the gameplay yet.
Yeah.
So there is a point where, at some point, you've just got to look at what is said and compare it to what is there. And when you look at it, the things this ship could have, as stated in the lore and in the design, you start to see this is a ship that's got so much versatility and so much potential.
Yeah. I think when it gets its another go round again, we'll see that again. Do you think they're going to do a Mark II treatment? Because I think that's a really, I don't like the precedent of that brought.
I really hate the idea that they did that with the Hornet. Given that this is the same vintage as the Hornet, I'm scared they will.
Yeah. Same.
But I kind of hope that the Eclipse was actually the new carrier-based torpedo bombers for the Navy, in which case they will decide they don't need to do a Mark II of this because the Eclipse has really taken over that role.
Yeah.
So that's my hope, but yeah, the Mark II of a Hornet really did leave a... And it wasn't that they made a Mark II, it was the fact that they made a Mark II and then...
Charged $50 for it.
Charged $50 for it, and...
To a ship that had never really had its time in the sun. That's what annoys me.
I would have rather them say, okay, yeah, we've now got the Mark II, and all those Mark Is you've got, they've been upgraded.
Yeah.
That would have been a much nicer or pleasant approach.
I agree with you on that one. 100%.
But then I can also, on the other side, I can see there'd have been people who said, but I want to keep my old...
Yeah. So you're forcing people. So I get your point.
So I think in this, it was a case of CIG are damned if they do and damned if they don't. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen it just make the Mark I something you could find in game, in old stashes or something like that, rather than make us buy it, make us buy the Mark II. But that's just me complaining.
Yep.
But
it's hard to find the sun in this game sometimes. Right. Still, there we go. So
but she is a beautiful ship.
Yeah.
And that's the default skin. Like,
there is no other skin. That's it. So yeah, and it is very different to anything else because it's got both metallics and kind of your normal matte colors. So I don't know. I still think it holds up after all this time though. Which you can't say for all ships, obviously.
No, there's very few ships that really hold up to the test of time, and this is
probably one of the best.
I personally think this is one of the ships that really does stand up to a test of time.
Well, it's the oldest one that's kind of not been redone, you know.
Well, I don't even think it has been redone yet, has it?
Yeah. I think they updated some of the graphics at one point ages ago, but that was at the same time when they did all the others. So yeah.
The other thing I do like about the cockpit of the Gladiator, if you go back to the internal view, it's one of the few ships where all your screens, all your HUDs are basically visible. Most others have them, up here and down, up and down, and all over the place. Where that's a nice strip, and so it does make it very easy for you to get to them. So four size 5 torpedoes.
Yeah. Definitely different from anything else we've seen. As in the bomb bay, like the bomb bay and a lot of the others are kind of almost flat and they kind of open. This thing is like split. It's like a split belly
it kind
bay.
Of opened up to show the racks rather than rather than dropping them out. And I would love to see it have the cargo bay or the bomb bay that you could load cargo in or missiles in. I'd love to see the ability to, certainly when they were doing withdrawals of people, I'm not sure how they were doing it, whether they were doing it via cargo or whether they were doing it by, one person flying in and picking up one person and flying out. But this is a ship that in lore is just steeped in lore. It's got a very illustrious career in terms of number of ships or things that's taken out. So, what I'm again waxing lyrical on this ship because I do like it so much, and
it's definitely more your baby than mine. I'll give you that, but I don't disagree with anything you've said.
It was my personal preference for supporting for us to support for Ship Showdown.
Yep. But I talked him out of it.
But you talked me out of it.
Because it's not as popular, right? And let's be honest, like we'll put that to the comments right now. Let's be honest, most people, this probably won't get as many views as the Terrapin video, just as the example, because the Terrapin is more popular. Prove me wrong. I'd love it to be the opposite, right? To be wrong in this, because there is just something nostalgic about this ship. It is one of the older ships, and I feel like supporting it mainly because it's not just a plain Jane fighter. That's the other part of it. And you want a challenge? Try and do something like Pirate Swarm with a mate in this, because it is a lot harder to use. And until it got that gun upgrade that it needed so badly, it was shockingly bad until it got that.
Well, and again, one of the things that this should have is what we don't see yet is armor. This is supposed to be, a heavily armored ship.
Yeah.
For what it is, and that's because it's slow, so it can take a beating. It's not a ship you want to go toe to toe with light fighters or other things. Although with its turret, it's probably better at fending them off than a regular Hornet.
Yeah.
Or a regular F7C. So it's not as it shouldn't be as bad as it is. And part of it is because we don't have armor yet, and so yeah.
So with that, then, Algared, I think what we're trying to say here is we would like to see some people get behind this and put it into the vote for the Ship Showdown. What are your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, look, it's up against the Terrapin. They're both really great ships in terms of their background, their lore, their history. They're both clunky. They're both old. I suppose the Gladiator is my personal favourite, but I really don't care which of those two ships win, but I'd love to see one of them go through to the final.
And to be fair, we'll put the Terrapin up there in the cards, and you can look at that one we did a couple of weeks back. But yeah, me and Algared were looking at the vote before the show. Actually, I could probably bring this up really quick, Algared. Hang on, give me a second. We were looking at the vote for the show, and we've kind of noticed that CIG have done something very sneaky. What they've done is they've taken the 3 ships that don't have skins, the 890 Jump, and then the Terrapin and the Gladiator, and they've put them against the only ship of the most popular ships that have won the Ship Showdown. So we're talking the MSR and the Carrack that are both not in the vote versus the 600i. Now, those 3 ships I just mentioned there at the end all have 2 best in show skins. So they are deliberately setting these ships up for failure. I don't like that at all.
And what's worse is they've put one of the most popular ships up against what they call the underdog.
Yeah.
The ship that nobody likes.
That's just cruel and unusual punishment. So, yeah,
Like,
get behind one of these ships.
The vehicles, not against the ship that's won multiple ship showdowns. That's, come on, CIG.
Yeah, so they're rigging the system against us, so let's rig it against them and get one of these up. Well, I don't care which one you like. If you prefer the Terrapin, you do you. But I think whoever wins this between the Terrapin and the Gladiator, because where the vote's going today, the 890 jump's going to lose by about 1,000 votes. So whoever wins out of the Terrapin and the Gladiator, do us all a favor and let's get that up there. And it's not because I hate the 600 or anything like that. It's the manipulation of CIG that I'm annoyed by. And I think once you realize what they're trying to do, because what that means is they don't have to reskin the 890 jump or the Gladiator or the Terrapin to make a skin for it. It's less work. They just go into Photoshop and change a few colors. That's why they're doing it, right? They're trying to save themselves work. So let's stop that and let's get some, because whatever one they end up doing skins for, more skins will come forth. That's why we always try to get behind it. Again, if you don't have a ship, a ship in this race, so you don't have a 600, a Gladiator, or a Terrapin, get behind the ones that don't have skins. And I think you'd agree with me on that one, wouldn't you, Algared?
Yeah, look, in terms of Gladiator or Terrapin, get behind one of them. Yeah. And whichever one goes through, everyone get behind that ship again in the next vote. That's my go-to, because I'd love to see either the Terrapin or the Gladiator go right through to the end.
Yeah. So as for the Gladiator, what would you like to hear from people below in the comments, Algared, in regards to everything we've talked about today?
I think, how would you improve it?
Yeah.
Do you think it does need to still have that versatility of the bomb bay and the cargo hold? Because I tend to think if you get those along with its armor, it doesn't need to have any super upgraded weapons or other stuff, because that versatility will enable it to cross all bounds.
For me, it's the hybrid nature of the ship, and as Algared said there, and he said earlier, the armor. I think that is going to be its big thing when it comes in. So yeah. And just it is an older ship. Do you understand? I think the other thing I'd kind of ask is, do you know what me and Al are going to talk about when it's got that old rickety feel? There's just something very nostalgically, and I've said it a few times, and Algared kind of disagrees with me a little bit, but I say it feels like because it's meant to be a World War II ship, like fighting game in space, but it feels like almost like a World War I game ship in a World War II game, if you know what I mean. So like it just like it's slightly older than everything else, and it feels a bit. It's just got this cool feel. I don't know how else to put it.
It really is the Dauntless.
Yeah.
The Dauntless, when it was first brought into to service, was a top of the line ship. It was very modern. But by the time the war started, it was actually outdated and behind most other things.
Yeah.
And it really is that type of ship. It's got that. It does have that outdated feel.
Yeah.
But it's clunky and Again, I'm waxing lyrical. I do just love that ship. I love the lore. I love the feel of it. I love it.
So get out there and vote. Even if you don't like the Gladiator, maybe you like the Terrapin, maybe you don't like the 890 jump, you maybe don't like any of them. The point I'm trying to make is I just don't like us being manipulated by CIG, which is very evidently clear that me and Algared walked into that today, and we thought we'd share that with you. So yeah, maybe leave that in the comments below too. Do you like being manipulated by CIG into voting for something else?
Or are we just
are we conspiracy theorists?
Yeah, are we just putting on our tinfoil hats again and seeing something that's not there?
Yeah. All right, then, with that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and thank you to everyone that went extra mile on Patreon at the end of the video. He's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here. Take care.
See you, citizens.